right? But the ISA was ready to work. He already had all his other studying information down, like the area, script, what else, value propositions. But the only thing that was missing was having the CRM and dialer.
All right, folks, we are back. I got a treat for you this time. We have the great Florencia. She is part of our customer care team, and she's here to talk about. She's a returning guest. Yeah, I know she has some fans out there, so she's back. Yeah, but
Hello,
I'm
hello.
placating. I'm placating the fans out there. So, but we're here, and we're here to talk about a topic that is near and dear to our hearts. Because unfortunately, we see it all the time, which is the biggest mistakes you can make with your ISA. Biggest mistakes, the no-nos, the self goals, the self-owned
Mhm.
issues you can have when you're onboarding, hiring, training, managing, compensating, bonusing an ISA. So we're gonna go over the big ones. We're gonna, Florencia has some like some hot off the press, right? Some fresh ones from the front lines in the
Oh yeah.
trenches day to day. And I have a lot of them that I talk to my agents about, the clients that we go over. So we're going to jump into it. We're going to talk about those right now. And Florencia, why don't you take it away? Why don't you get it started, kind of setting the table for the topic? Go for it.
Cool. So these are I made a list, of course, always prepared, but these are the ones that I've seen most recently. And so let's start with this smooth onboarding. So there's a few things that fall under this one, but I think a huge one, and this is all coming from feedback from the ISAs. So sometimes I'll take over the some of the Thursday and Friday sessions. So I like to hear them out as well, right? So I'll see our client side and also the ISA side. But a big one is having systems in place. So, your CRM, your dialer, and the biggest one, the payment platform. We've had that issue recently where it's
Oh
like
my goodness.
really
There's
lost
like
and
there's like three
it's
mistakes in there.
payday.
You're grouping too many of them together. We have to
I know,
unpack
I
that.
know.
There's a lot of really good ones in there. I think
Okay.
they all deserve a calling out and some recommendations. Let's start with the first one. What do you mean by making sure you've got your systems ready to go? Let's unpack that one a little bit. Can you give people some examples of some things you should have read? Because people hear systems and then think, oh no, my operations manual, they might think of this huge amount of work. And it's actually not that, right? So when
Um,
you say you got to have your systems ready to go, what are your for? Give people some examples.
Okay, so I've had the issue. It was two incidents where it's like the CRM and dialer weren't ready. So the ISA was really just going over the script, and it's like, okay, so what do we do now? Like everybody was a little bit lost with the CRM and dialer, and basically they didn't know what they were going to use yet, right? But the ISA was ready to work. He already had all his other studying information down, like the area, script, what else, value propositions. But the only thing that was missing was having the CRM and dialer. Oh, and then sometimes I feel like we go over this in the onboardings, but like some people need that bridge line number. And
Oh
so
yes.
we want to make sure that that is ready by the time you jump into interviews as well. So
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
100%. And for the people that don't know what that means, it means that some of these dialers, right? Some of the dialing systems within the CRMs, in systems like Mojo, in systems like Chime, they're not a true digital voice line, right? You can't just buy Chime and make a phone call. You can't. You have to dial. You use a physical phone or a VoIP phone, an internet phone, to dial into it first, and then you can start the dialing session. So there's like a two-step process. That's what we call the bridge, like a bridge line. And the most common ones are, for instance, Mojo is a really common one. It needs a
Right.
bridge. Chime is another one that I know that needs a bridge. A lot of the CRMs and some of the dialers, they need those bridge lines, and some of them have true digital lines. Like Follow Up Boss has a true
Mhm.
digital line. I think Vortex, you can dial out of Vortex, and there's a few of them where you can do that. So just make sure you understand the difference. I think is kind of important. But the broader point is, what tools are they going to use, and are they ready? Like
Mhm.
that, you're right. I mean, do they have a seat in the CRM? Do they have a seat in the dialer? Do you know what dialer you're going to use? If you're kind of rushing towards this while your ISA is already like their ISA is already started, you don't have these things ready, you're going to go through a lot of stress over this, right? You're going to rush into it. Mistakes can be made, and it is a very avoidable kind of situation. Ask for help. We can help out. We can give you links. Like, we give you our affiliate links to jump in on these dialers and all these systems. You'll get a little bit of a deal on those, right? We can help out with these kinds of issues. But in our process, every time you sign up with PowerISA, you fill out an onboarding form, you have an onboarding call with our team, we're trying to tease out what tools you're going to use because we know how important that is, right? Like if you don't have the tools ready to go on day one, you're already going to waste a lot of time. So we want to make sure we understand, you know what your dialer is. If not, that's okay. Let us know that you don't know yet, right? We can suggest some. What CRM are they going to use? One of the first questions we ask. What are the key systems? CRM and dialer are just the most important ones. But
Mhm.
what are those key pieces of software going to use? What are they going to use a branded email? A lot of people should use. We recommend
Mhm.
that they use a branded email for your team, and that should be their identity everywhere they go. An email you control as the agent. It's your email address that the ISA uses to log in and be identity into all of these different systems. There's a lot of things that go into it, but I would say yes, having those ready to go on day one is a huge benefit. Huge benefit. It takes some work. You got to sit down. It takes a few clicks, right, to get that happening. Got to pull out your credit card a couple times. But definitely, worth the trouble because yeah, you're right. Having that kind of chaotic beginning is very avoidable.
Yeah, and then also with that includes the payment platform. So we suggest Wise or
Yes.
Remitly. I know there's a new one called Zoom. I think it's through PayPal, but it's different. It's better, I've heard from ISAs. So I feel like this one's a huge one because
Yeah.
when it comes to payday, it like turns out like, oh, I don't like this one. And it's like, so the payment holds off, the ISA gets frustrated, agent is like
Yeah.
putting it off. So it just messy. Messy, messy, messy.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, 100%. Follow. I mean, if follow our recommendations, recommend some of the best ones out there, the ones that are used most frequently. I think with Wise, the former TransferWise, now just called Wise, Remitly, we use those all the time. We use every single week. We use those. And I think they're very reliable. Zoom, that's with an X, right? XOOM, Zoom.
XOOM.
That one's been around for a really long time as well. I didn't even know that must have gotten acquired by PayPal or something. But that one, you can also use that one too. But here's the thing. You don't want to be cracking those open and figuring them out Friday afternoon, which is payday, right? That is when
Right.
the trouble starts. That's what even a day before we're like, hey, don't forget, here's the payment information, here's the information. We try to remind you, try to get you in the process. So
Hmm.
just to make sure we don't run into these kinds of issues, because if you have an issue, you want it to be, latest, you want to be Thursday afternoon. You're clarifying, hey, so which one are you using? And by the way, what's your email again? And oh, I can't find the email if Lorenzo sent me
Yeah.
with your address. All these little things, we try to help out. But if you leave it to the last minute, it can get nerve-wracking, a lot of frustration. And then what ends up happening is you pay your ISA late, right? The first payday can always take a 1 or 2 business days, by the way. That's normal. The first
Yeah, the
payday, it
first
can happen.
one.
It's very common. But after that, it should be within 2 minutes, within an hour.
Oh, and another one, Gus, PayPal. We know that the first transaction, we don't recommend PayPal because it takes up to 20 days, right? Um for the ISA to receive. So, because a lot of people are
Yes.
like, why don't we just
And
use PayPal? But it's because it's a common issue that we've seen.
yeah, it's a common issue. And, PayPal really cracked down on international payments. They don't want them, like for business reasons. They really prefer friends and family. You kind of have to lie that you're friends and family. So I don't recommend it for a lot of reasons. I don't think PayPal is a
Mhm.
great solution for this scenario. It's great for goods and services or to send money to families and stuff like that, family members, things like that. But I agree. Like use the tried and true, tools, TransferWise, Remitly, and Zoom. I think in that order for me personally. I think that in that order because I just like
Yeah.
Wise a lot. Has a really good interface, very easy to use. I use it personally all the time, right? So I think it's a great tool. And by the way, I do have an affiliate link somewhere, so ask me for it if you want to try out Wise. So I mean, it's a great tool. I think it's a great one.
Yeah, it is.
And people should go with the easy button. Just push the easy button, right? Go with the
Mhm.
tried and true solution. Don't kind of get cute with it. I think one of our clients, I'm remembering, they had done a lot of virtual payments before, and they had worked with a lot of people in Asia. And I think the system they used was Payoneer. And I might be getting that one wrong,
Yeah.
might not. And they had done a lot of payments in places like Bangladesh and Pakistan and, India and I think Philippines. And they said, "Oh, I know this." I go, "Well, I think banks in Latin America are a little bit different, right? I don't think they work exactly the same. You should give yourself a little bit of time." And the client didn't listen. And then it took him, I think, like several days to get the payment through because, he was
Mm.
missing information and then he didn't have time, was busy. The ISA would send it and then he'd do it the next day. And it was just became a really painful situation that could have completely been avoided by getting it done a little bit ahead of time and not waiting last minute. This is one where it really matters to do it the right time. Sorry, do it right the first time. It really matters when you do it right the first time because if you don't get paid on your first week as an ISA, like I think people need some context on it's not like, oh, my mistake, I'll make it up to you on Monday. There is this whole a concern. There's like a meme. There's like a trope of the US client that doesn't pay their virtual staff. That's a real concern that a lot of ISAs have. They've put in work
Yeah.
for a week, for 2 weeks, for 30 days sometimes, and they never get paid for that, right? It's happened to every a virtual assistant out there. I don't know if it's from Mexico, Colombia, Philippines, wherever. It's happened to them, and they're always wary of that. They're always concerned. There's a lot of cautionary tales. Oh, this U.S. client is not going to pay you because they're going to come after me here in the U.S. Ha ha ha. You'll never get it, right? So there's always that concern. So when you start throwing some red flags at them, they get concerned because like, oh, maybe this was an honest mistake, or maybe I've got a really bad client doesn't pay their virtual staff. Oh my goodness, what do I do, right? So you don't want to get them in that space. You don't want to get them in that area of concern. You want to make it easy for them.
Right. Yeah, it's not because I know I get some clients where it's like, oh, do they just care about the pay? No, it's not that. It's just they've had a bad experience. They've been burned before, so it doesn't look good. You get trust issues. You feel uneasy. You feel like, oh my, is this gonna happen again? So that's the reason why. And I don't think any of us like to get paid late. It's stressful. We either have bills to pay or whatever it is.
Yeah,
So
100%.
everyone's looking
And you
forward to
don't
that.
you
Yep.
don't want it to be part of the conversation, right? You really don't want that to happen. Not if you can avoid it. If you can avoid it, right? So
hmm
100%. I think that's true. So what other those are on the onboarding kind of early stages in the process. What other mistakes do you think people make with their
So
ISA?
this
Big
one kind of
mistakes.
goes with the payroll that we're talking about. So I had the incident where um, they will change up the bonus structure or the
Ooh,
offer last minute. So
yeah.
for example, I give out this offer, ISA accepts, and then when it comes to their first pay, it's like, oh no, we're gonna hold off for 2 weeks. That's what our team usually does, and it's like, okay, I understand that, but this should have been presented in the offer details because you're switching it up on the ISA and they're like, whoa, again, it's just uncomfortable situation. It makes you
Yeah.
feel like, are they gonna do this again or are they gonna change things up on me? So yeah, that's happened quite a couple times.
100%. Yeah, I think it goes into the same vein of that trust, right? When you start off with a situation like that, I think it can be challenging, especially when you're just getting started. Hey, we're making this offer, this schedule, this hourly rate, this bonus structure. Oh, by the way, let's change that, right? But I will say one thing, Valencia. The bonus structure I think should change in the
Oh yeah.
sense that the first 30 days you don't know what the goals are.
hmm
You should know what that weekly bonus amount is. I think you should, but we're not sure how many nurtures is it going to take, how many live transfers, how many booked appointments, how many attended appointments. We don't know yet, right? We always advise our clients give them about a month of data, and we'll help you come up with that goal, right? I think we
Yeah.
always kind of recommend that. That is the one exception. And then when it comes to bonuses, you should always set this is a conversation you should have at the very start, right? You should tell them, hey, by the way,
Yeah.
we're going to be adjusting this, right? We need this to be a win-win. We need this bonus structure to be a win for you as an ISA and a win for us as a company. Because a lot of these bonuses that we recommend people use, you're paying them out before money's coming in, right? You're paying them out before you've closed the transaction. Because we recommend smaller bonuses on a weekly basis if your ISA is hitting their KPIs, their
hmm
leading indicators, right? If they're crushing those goals, then absolutely you should get a bonus. But there's got to be a balance because a lot of the agents and sometimes the ISAs don't always understand this. They're putting out that money before they're receiving any money from the project, from the ISA's efforts, right? So it's got to be a balance. It can't be too much one way or too much the other. because it won't last. It's not sustainable. It's not going to work, right? Finding a good balance is exactly where it should be and where it's a win-win for both parties, whether that's going to be 10 nurtures and a $50 bonus or 3 nurtures and a $30 bonus. You've got to figure out what that right number is. And that's what we're here for, right? When our clients are not sure about these things, it's probably the most common question I get in our weekly coaching calls with our clients. People are asking me, hey, what kind of bonus structure should I have for my ISA? It's a really common question, really common issue that we come into, and we're here to help. Exactly, there to tell people how it works, right? So, yeah, I'd say changing up the offer is not great, but the bonus
The
structure in and of
bonus, yeah.
itself, that one you've got some flexibility on. You can't change it every month. I don't recommend that either, right? But I think you've got some flexibility there when you're getting started.
Hmm. Yep,
Cool.
I agree.
Awesome. What's
Okay.
another one you have on the list?
So the next one is emphasis on goals and expectations. I've heard that, a lot of ISAs don't get enough info on the goals and expectations, so they don't really know what's going on. That's another
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's true. I think that's a big one. It's definitely, I think it's important. It kind of comes together with when you talked about systems, right? I think systems for an ISA isn't just a CRM, the dialer. It is what are they going to do, right? They're part of a process. The ISA isn't the be all end all of the whole transaction, of course not, but they're the beginning part, right?
Hmm.
How do you know that beginning part is working properly? How do you know that they're doing their job? I think that's the first question you should ask. Because if no one can answer that question, if the agent can't answer that question, the ISA can't answer it either, right? It's like a leadership question. You got to ask, hey, where are we at? How do we know if we're hitting our goals? Do we even have any goals? What are the goals sometimes, right? And you got to break it down. If you want your ISA to add 2 more transactions to your team every single month, I think that's a very achievable, very realistic goal. If they can add 2 more transactions per month for your team, great. How many appointments does that come down to? How many converted leads does that come down to, right? And to achieve that, how many leads you have to call every single day? I think that's just as simple as that. It's like, okay, what's the high? Because I think people are really good at that high level goal. I want more deals. Okay, great. Let's break it
Hmm.
down. How
Hmm.
many people do you need in the pipeline to get those deals, right? Or let's look at it from the cold calling perspective, right? Like, okay, great. I see you had the exact same 2 transactions. Okay, that's great. To get 2 signed deals from prospecting, you probably need to nurture probably, I think 5%. If 5%, 10. If 5% is 2, what's 100%? So times 20. So you need about 40 to 50 nurtures. Okay. Let's round numbers. You need 50 people in the list to get 2 closed transactions, right? So 50 people, 50 nurtures in there. Okay. Okay, great. How many people do I need to talk to get a nurture? Another round number. Let's say you got to talk to 20 people on the phone, 20 conversations to get 1 seller nurture, someone that's going to be selling their home in the next year. Okay. So your ISA on a monthly basis needs to talk to 1,000 people, right? Roughly, rough math here, if you want to achieve that goal. Okay. If they want to talk to, close 2 deals a month, they have to talk to roughly about 1,000 people, which is about 50 people a day, rough, like working days. Okay, that's just really fast math. But 2 transactions is about 50 nurtures, which is about 2,000 conversations. Sorry, 1,000 conversations, which is about 50 a day. Okay, so if you want to achieve that, how can you make it happen? How, right? Got to find a way. Got to have the right data, got to have the right dialer, and you got to hold your ISA accountable for that. That's a high bar. Talking to 50 people consistently every single day is a very high bar. What do they need to achieve it? Good data, good dialer, right? And the right ISA making the calls, of course. But
Hmm.
you got to have those building blocks in place, and that's a good metric to have. 50 conversations a day. I want 1 or 2, sorry, 2 converted seller nurtures, right? That's what it takes to get two transactions a month. That's a lot for just cold calling, right? If you're talking about circle prospect, maybe 1 is more realistic, right? But that's what you would need, that analysis of, hey, how can we
Hmm.
do it? If your ISA can only get you 1 seller nurture a day, by the way, that's an amazing number, right? Just 1 a day. They're going to add, on average, an additional transaction every single month to your team. If they can convert one potential seller into the pipeline every single day, they're going to add at least 1 transaction. And then year 2, they're going to add 2 transactions every single month. to your team, just because that's how it's a cascading effect. And we just had, a couple of weeks ago, we had him here in the group, Carlos Gonzalez, right? This is it. And in fact, he had so many nurtures. He was doing 2 a month right off the bat, like 2 per month,
Wow.
2 closings from just circle prospecting nurtures all the live long day. So that was a lot faster, but it all starts with how many can you get a day? How many can you? And he was really good on the phone. But Carlos hated cold calling, though, right? He's good with people, not great at cold calling. Okay, fine. An
Right.
ISA can help you make those calls as long as you know how to take them to the finish line. You can. So he had twice the conversion rate of a regular agent. He just didn't make the calls, right? So great. You had an ISA make the calls, just stacking up, racking them up on those nurtures. And instead of 1 out of 20, he converted 1 out of 10. So he just needed him to make one. Give me one a day, and I'll get 2 deals out
That's
of it.
good.
Just give me one a day. Give me 20 new ones every month. I'll get 2 deals out of it. Boom, boom, boom. And within 3 months, he was there, right? It's a great, great, great story on how that math can work. But even if you're not as good as Carlos, and it takes 20 nurtures to get you one transaction over the next few months, that's still good. In most markets, that's crazy good money, a great return, because an ISL costs you about 1,000 a month, and on the low end, a commission in the U.S. is going to be about 12,000, right? So spend $1,000 on an ISA, get 12,000 in commission. It's pretty good, median price in the U.S., right? So basically, it's a long way to say yes,
Uh-huh.
absolutely. You got to set the right goals, and they have to be achievable. They have to be realistic. And but I think your point is even more simple than that, Valencia. You just have to have them, right? And
Yeah, just
communicate them clearly. Like, what
yes.
is the goal? What are your numbers? What's your scoreboard, right? How do you know you're
Mhm.
doing a good job?
Yeah, and that goes to my next one, the proper and constant communication. So this has been a big issue, I think, this last month as well, where the ISAs aren't receiving feedback on their calls, on the appointments they're setting. They feel like their appointments are being followed up on. So they have no clue how they're doing with the appointments. And I feel like that one's really important because they feel insecure. They don't know if they're doing a good job on the appointments, if they're qualifying them well. So yeah, that one is a new one.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that clear communication is such a. I have yet to see a successful campaign that doesn't have solid communication, consistent communication with the ISA. I think agents that have the expectation they can kind of put the ISA in a virtual room, lock the door, and never pay attention to them, and just collect a bunch of listings. That's not a real thing. That's not a realistic expectation. As long as you involve them in the process, right? And you treat them like a member of your team. I don't think there's any member of your team you should not have daily communication with, quite
Mhm.
frankly, right? Especially a salesperson, right? They're a salesperson on your team. You gotta have consistent and quality communication. But let's break that down. I'll give an example. I think you should at least once a week, you should sit down and have like a one-on-one conversation with them at least once a week that
Yeah.
isn't just looking at numbers and just looking at the calls from yesterday. It should be. I
Mhm.
mean, you can do early on. You can do call review during those meetings. I think that's fine. But I prefer when they're for the first 30 days, the first 60 days, you're doing daily 15, 20-minute meetings doing call reviews and looking at numbers. I think you should do that every day early on. But you can get to a point where you're doing a weekly one-on-one. Hey, how are things going overall? Not just that day. Like, how are things going overall? Any feedback? How can we do things better? How can I help you do your job better? You'd have that conversation at least once a week. I think that's great communication. But when we're talking about specific appointments and we're talking about feedback and we're talking about call review, that's every day. I don't think there's any
Yeah.
substitute for that.
You know what? I've also had a couple where it's like for some reason, obviously agents are busy, they couldn't make it to the appointment and whatnot. They failed to communicate that to the ISA. So the ISA never was able to follow up on time. By the time they both were like, "Oh, we didn't talk to this person," that lead just it was no longer interested. And that's frustrating as well for the ISA. The
You
ISA is
lose a
scared
deal.
too.
You
Yeah,
lose a
they fall
deal.
through the
Yeah,
cracks.
100%. 100%. I think that's important because, I think the consumer has high expectations, right? I don't think that's different. I don't think that changes. The consumer has high expectations. And I think you have to rise to the occasion. I don't think you can slack off on it. I don't think you can let it go. 100%. And that is, you're right, a lack of communication. I think, and it's leads falling through the cracks. A lead falls through the cracks. No, the notes aren't updated. No one sends a message, a direct message. Could have been a message, an email, a text. Could have been updating notes in the CRM. But if that doesn't happen, it's hard to really have a tight process, like a well-run machine, if you're missing little details like that, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's why that weekly meeting is super important, just to go over the leads, like, hey, did you get to this one, or what happened to this one? And
I think that's
um,
a good forum to have a little bit of a broader conversation. How's the pipeline going?
yeah.
What are your hottest leads that you're nurturing, Mr. ISA? What are the biggest opportunities you got in your pipeline? Okay, great. Like, that's something you should do, 100%.
Hmm. And then my last one, you said it. So making the ISA feel part of the team. I feel like, I mean, at the end, we all want to win, right? And it's basically just
Yeah.
how you operate and nurture your team. So just make the ISA feel important.
Yeah, 100%. And I see it time and time again. I think the business owners, the team leaders, they kind of understand that their
Mhm.
virtual staff is also their staff. Their virtual team is also their team. I think they're going to thrive. They're going to do great because they know how to get the best out of people. I think people that hire people for the first time, they're kind of getting used to it. You got to learn fast, got to figure things out. But my rule of thumb is you should treat them like you would treat someone that's in house with you in face to face as much as you can. And I mean including them in your team meetings, including them in your communications. Don't exclude them from those things. Oh, this is for in-person people. This is for output, not virtual people. Do that as
Yeah.
little as possible. My recommendation, right? Do it only when strictly necessary. I think for a lot of team activities, team communication, I think it's the best. And I like to explain it this way, friends. I have a model where I like to talk about this. I think there's three levels of accountability you can have with your members of your team. Three levels of accountability. The first level of accountability is a very low level. It is, are you even showing up on time? Are you making the calls during the day? Are you at least sending out your end of day email? That is a very low bar to me. It's accountability towards the bare minimum, quite frankly, right? It's accountability towards like really, really simple things. If you've got accountability towards goals, right? Accountability towards actual results, which is appointments, live transfers, closings, qualified leads, that is a higher level of accountability, right? Because yes, it takes showing up on time and it takes calls, but now we're talking about results. It's a higher level of accountability. Am I accountable to results? Not just showing up on time. That's kind of a low bar, right? But if you don't have that, you don't have anything. Right? But the next level is, am I accountable to my results? Am I accountable to my goals? Right? Then the third level of accountability, which is hard to do, it's challenging to do, is what I like to call accountability to the team. Okay. Now, very few teams achieve this to where people don't just tell their goals to their manager or the agent, the owner, right? But they share their goals with the team, actually. Hey, team, this week I'm going to make these calls and I'm going to set 3 live transfers over to the team so they can sign them up as buyers, right? That is my goal here in front of you. That's what I'm going to accomplish this week. And I'm going to do 3 because I normally do 2, but I missed mine last week. So I got to make up for it this week, right? So I got to make up for that number. And I'm going to do this, this, and this to make sure I don't miss the goal this week. And I'm going to make up one from last week. Let's go, right? And it's not just telling it to the manager. It's telling it to everyone else. Okay. That is for my opinion, that is the highest level of accountability you can have, which is team accountability. Team accountability. And that people think that just happens by sharing your goals. It's more than that. It is that team culture, right? It is that, open line of communication. It is making people feel safe, feel comfortable in that environment, but having a standard. And it's tough to talk about standards. It's not easy. It's not easy to share goals. You're vulnerable. What if you don't make it? I'd rather not say anything, Gus. I'd rather just not just stay here silent and rah rah and let's not talk about numbers. Let's not talk about goals. It's a lot safer. It's a lot easier to not talk about numbers, not talk about goals. But you're never going to have a high performing team, a high performing culture if everyone stays silent about their successes and failures out of fear, right? So for me, it all starts with team, right? That you can't achieve that high level of accountability, the highest level, without making everyone feel part of the team and having a really good team culture.
Agreed. Well said.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. It's something I'm passionate about because I see a
Yeah.
lot of people make mistakes there. We're talking. This is a session about mistakes. Let's be honest. So I see people make mistakes there. I think, but I think for instance, I think for most teams, if they can achieve the first level of accountability and the second one, I think it can be good to go. Like the
Yeah.
highest level is not for everyone, right? Not everyone can achieve it. Not everyone needs to, right? But if you can achieve the first two levels of accountability, accountability towards the standards and accountability towards the results, that's what most agents need, right? Some of
Mhm.
our clients, despite our systems and our recommendations, they don't even achieve the first level of accountability with their ISAs or anyone on their staff, quite frankly, right? They don't, they don't. They're like, they're not even sure if they worked that day. They're not even sure if they came in. They're not 100%. Oh, I just realized it's been a month and then no one made any calls on my team. Like, holy cow, like what's going on there, right? There's a lack
Yeah.
of accountability, a very basic level of accountability, right? So yeah, that's something we want to avoid. You don't want that.
No, I've seen that happen too, where it's like the first time around they didn't do all of that, and then the second time it's like, okay, I got this. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna show up. I'm
I
gonna,
understand why.
yeah,
I
I
now
understand
understand
what
why.
you.
Yeah, and that's what we actually set this expectation. It can take two or three hires to get a great person. It can take two
Yeah.
or three. That's not a failure of the process. That is the process, right? It is the process, 100%.
Hmm. Yeah. So that was it for my list today, Gus.
All right. Sounds good. It was a great list. I think it's been a really, really good session. So, Adencia, as always, thank you so much for jumping in, adding all of this value, and we will see you here on the next one.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Bye, guys.